Hi everyone, welcome back to Atrium Research's YouTube channel. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Peter Espig, the President, CEO, and Director of Nicola Mining Corp, which trades on the TSXV under the symbol NIM. We currently cover Nicola with research and have a buy rating and target price of $1.10 per share on the company, which were recently increased from 90 cents on the back of positive news, which we'll be talking about a little bit today with Peter. But Peter, great to have you here.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're eager to hear the story. For those that do not know the story too well, maybe you can use this presentation, walk us through in sort of a brief overview of the company, what you guys do, and then we'll get into some Q&A after that.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Ben. So rather than going through the whole presentation, I just wanted to highlight a few slides within our presentation, which you can see on the website. But as you look at this, what you see here is this project portfolio, and I just want to emphasize that all our projects are in British Columbia. All our projects are synergistic, and they all work together. And so. But there's a lot going on for a company that is a junior mining company like us, both on the operational and exploration side. And this is a really pivotal year. So if you look at the top corner, you'll see the new Craigmont project. And I'm going to go over the projects. I'll bring up the projects, and then I'll bring up timelines within those projects. And you can see, how exciting this year is for Nicola and where we are now, and really where we're going in the future. So if you look at the new Craigmont project, this is the highest grade copper project in the history of North America. And we started 2025 exploration on June 1st. And the goal of 2025 was to start vectoring towards a porphyry system. And without getting in too much detail, we're just very, very excited with what we're seeing right now. So that's something that, I'll put a big check mark beside. And then if you go to the other side, you look at the Merritt Mill. Now, the Merritt Mill facility is this facility that we have in the map. You can look at the map. It's pretty central in British Columbia. It's very unique in that our permit allows it. Our permit reads, Nicola Mining has the right to accept and process gold and silver mill feed from anywhere in the province of British Columbia, subject to notifying the Ministry of Mining 10 days ahead. So, what's going on at our site right now is the following: is on June 1st, or June 15th, we started receiving material from Talisker. In beginning of July, we started milling. We actually did our first shipment of ore, or first shipment of concentrate to Ocean Partners yesterday, which is July 31st. And on July 10th, one of our other partners, Blue Lagoon, had its mine open house and has started working at its project. And we expect to start receiving materials from Blue Lagoon in September. And then on the bottom right, you'll see our Dominion Creek project, which we own 75%. And this is an incredible project. This is a project that at surface has grades that range from 20 grams per ton gold to 2 ounces, 60 grams per ton plus gold. And so we started work. We had an announcement on Monday of this week, the last week of July. Within 2 weeks after that, we will start extracting gold ore, and it's under a 10,000 ton bulk sample. And this is something that we own 75%. But it's an interesting contract that we have, in that we own 75% for the first 10,000 tons as part of our contract with High Range. And after the first 10,000 tons, we then own 100% of the project. So that's basically our buy-in. So we've got, Talisker, Blue Lagoon, Dominion shipping to us. We're also in talks with other groups. We have Treasure Mountain. So Treasure Mountain, in June of 2025, we received a 5-year multi-permit exploration MIAB, and we also in January of 2025 announced that we got a 10-year mine extension on the project. So this is a very, very high grade silver project. It's 90 minutes away from our mill. And so everything goes into the mill, which is centralized. And last but not least, we have a sand pit, rock quarry, sand gravel pit, rock quarry, and cement ready mix plant. And we will actually be working on the project, the Highland Valley project, which some of you may know recently got the go ahead for a $2.8 billion upgrade. So some of the gravel and some of the rock that will be utilized for that project should be coming from our site because we're adjacent to them. Here again, you can see the mill, and I just want to, this is a, I think this really shows the power of our location and our permit within British Columbia. So each one of those yellow dots you see, Ben, is a project that has less than 1 million tons gold resource, but higher than 7 grams. What do they all have in common? None of them have a mill. And so we're kind of in this situation where, this is a long-term roll-up platform. And then the silver, you can see there, it's greater than 1 million tons and higher than 20 ounces per ton gold 43101 resource. So we're just in this location where, we've got this opportunity to expand our mill, to roll up, to continue to be a milling partner to our partners that we currently have and will continue to expand on. And so this is a real cash flowing junior mining company. And again, here what you see is and this is very unique, important if you look at this slide as well, in that, our mill is currently 250 tons a day. But if you look at the top photo, what you see is you see the layout of the mill, and we've got a external, our primary crusher has a crushing capacity of 650 tons. Our secondary crushing capacity is 650. Our tertiary crushing capacity is 650. And then when you look at the mill in the bottom left, you can see that it's very large, and it was our current capacity, our flotation capacity is 1,000 tons a day. And so we've got this ability to go up to 650 tons a day with almost like very little. The only thing that needs to be done is the ball mill swapped and the permit amended. So, and then when you look at the fully lined tailings photo on the bottom right, you can see that we own. So this is all land that we own freehold. So we're a little bit different than most other mining companies that are typically on crown land and have to reclaim the land back to traditional Indigenous First Nation usage. Our site is an industrial site and can do industrial activities. So we have the ability to put on this property here multiple tailings facilities. So, I look at this as a long-term uh, central milling hub that we will have partners. We'll also do, we'll consolidate the region, and it's I3 industrial land on land that we own. And to replicate this same facility, you would have to spend well over $100 million now in British Columbia. So a lot of the smaller mining projects are kind of, I'm not saying they're orphaned, but it's a lot easier to get a mine permit and to pay to get the underground where your environmental impact is quite small. It's a lot easier to get those permits and spend that allocate funds towards that infrastructure than it is to build an entire tailings facility.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, and here you see some of our partners: Blue Lagoon, Talisker, Osisko, Ocean Partners. The bottom right, Lower Nicola Site Services, is a partnership we have with First Nations. So we're well positioned on all fronts here, and so that's really what wanted to talk about the assets. And now, as far as like where we are going revenue side, and I'll just end with this slide. What you see is, you can see in 2022 we were producing. You could see the idle capacity. Then 2023, and you'll see that it went up in 2023. And so in 2023, we did close to $7 million in operating cash flow, operating profit. And that allowed us to go out and do investments. So we acquired and spent the money to get the infrastructure for Dominion. We purchased the camp recently for Dominion. So this is all out of our own hard cash. And we've invested close to $1.2 million into Blue Lagoon to help them go forward. They're a very important partner of ours. And then you can see though in 2024 it went down. So the question is, okay, you went up, why did it go down? And one of the reasons is because we had very clear visibility as to permits coming online. So we could see early in 2024 that Talisker was moving towards its operations and getting an amendment to its permit to increase throughput. We could see, because working with the ministry, that Blue Lagoon was going to get its permits, and we could see that Dominion was going to get its permits. So, if we look in 2025, January, Blue Lagoon received its final permit and has now gone into the production phase, pre-production
Mhm.
phase, and will be shipping to us in September. Dominion received its bulk sample permit in January, and we're already on site right now. We expect to be extracting gold from that site within 2 weeks of this call. So there's because of that visibility, what we did is we only milled for 2 months, and we did three key parts. And I've kind of alluded to it on the previous slides, but one of the first things we did though was we did we installed a very large gravity concentrator at our mill with a fully encaged tabling system, because the grades are, when we produce a gravity con, we get in excess of 20% gold within that con. And so we installed that to maximize the recovery of our free gold. We then fully automated the mill. So our mill is essentially, we can run chemical balances off tablets, just almost like a cell phone. And the reason for that is that it optimizes your operations and your chemical balance, but it also maximizes your recovery. And remember, recovery is a really important profit, enhancer. So we did that those upgrades in 2024. And the last upgrade we did is we did a lot of infrastructure work, which includes pumps and motors and steel, strengthening of steel beams for the time when we get our permit to expand our throughput production, so that we would just have to swap the ball mill. So we did all these upgrades, and then you can already see in 2025 we're already moving upwards. And
Mhm.
so, from July of 2025 to July of 2026, we expect to do north of 100 million in revenues. And after 2026, we expect that to, based on our current throughput, which we're going to which will be maximized very soon here, somewhere between 100 to 120 million in revenues. But when we get the amendment, that can triple. And so then, you become a company that can do 250 million in revenues. Obviously, as your revenues go up, so do your profit margins, which we expect currently to be somewhere between 15 to 18%. So that's kind of, Nicola, where we are now and where we're going forward. And there's, behind the scenes, we continue to look at acquisition opportunities using our balance sheet. And I think this will also be enhanced because our plan is to do a uplisting to NASDAQ. And we've already started that process. So we're hoping to, by the end of 2025, to also be trading on NASDAQ. And we're able to do that because most companies, most uplistings, one of the things that they have is, so there are certain um, exemptions that help companies do the uplisting. One is a $75 million US free float, which we have. But the other is showing that you have $750,000 net profit, which most explorers don't have, but Nicola will.
Mhm.
So this is something that we're very excited about as we go forward to list on NASDAQ. And as you know, Ben, I come from I worked on Wall Street and worked for a Wall Street firm. So I feel very comfortable talking about our company to U.S. investors, which is an investment market that we really haven't tapped yet. So that's Nickel in a nutshell, and I'm happy to field any questions that you have.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate that, Peter, and it's a great story. It's unique, but it positions what would be a small cap explorer in a position of strength. Like you said, bringing revenues
Yeah,
in soon to have cash flows, and it's sort of this hub and spoke situation where that map that you showed, there's a boatload of these gold and silver
sure.
projects that have high grade and some tons, but probably too small to build a mill and have a mine themselves. So with that, I did have
And
a few.
just a comment,
Mhm.
Ben, is that because we do speak with the ministry very closely, and so the Ministry of Mining and even the Ministry of Environment want small projects to go forward. That what they don't want is that mining industries relied on these massive billion-dollar companies that can go in and pay for everything, and then you basically wipe out the venture market or the juniors, right? So they are very, very encouraging right now. And you see that with Talisker, you see that
Yeah.
with Blue Lagoon, and you'll see that with these other companies that are going forward. And so they want these projects to move forward. The issue is the capital constraint of building a mill, but also the time constraint, which is 10 years plus in BC. So in order to expedite these projects, it's just Nicola is a very natural
Yeah.
um, location to get that for because again, we are the one project that owns the land freehold.
hmm hmm So couple things to unpack. Firstly, on your milling agreements with your partners, can you explain? I know that you've sort of come at with a unique approach to these relationships. Can you explain sort of the Nicola strategy around these agreements you have with your partners and ore sources?
Sure. I think the main thing is that it's we don't toll mill, so we don't take a cost plus, right? So and I've all our partners understand it now, but there's an education period where people think, okay, well, we'll pay you cost plus. And the issue with the cost plus, let's call it a tolling agreement, which we don't enter into, is the more inefficient the mill site is, the more money they actually make. Because the more we charge our partners, that then you charge a cost plus. So what you end up doing is you end up sucking the livelihood or the viability or the NPV of these projects. So I've always said, look, we will work very hard. We want to be essentially a project generator where and we will grind our guys to lower our milling costs. And you as the miner, you're gonna want to grind your guys to lower the mining costs. So now our interests are aligned. So the key part of these agreements is to align interest, and the interest alignment is on the profitability. So you look at, what is profitability in a mining project? It's cost of mining, cost of transportation or trucking, it's the cost of milling, and and then you take that out and then you have profitability. So the main thing is that we align our interest in lowering these three and focusing on the maximization of the latter.
Right, right. Certainly makes sense. You definitely don't want a lazy mill that still is clipping a fee as the producer. So that does bring me though to the news this week from Dominion Creek and the 10,000 ton bulk sample that you guys will be mining
Sure.
from in the next couple of weeks. How does that look like for Nicola? Obviously, you own 70% interest, so I would imagine your profit
75.
margins, 75, excuse me,
Yeah.
your profits would be that much more than with your milling agreements and other partners.
And Ben, that's a great question. So let me kind of give you where our vision and the importance of Dominion, and we also, um, without saying too much, we are looking at another bulk sample as well. So let's get back to our milling partners, or so where we have profit agreements with. So the goal there is to be a good partner. So Nicola wants to be a good partner to our partners, and and you know that's how you get a reputation where other groups say, hey, we're going to we want to ship it to Nicola, right? Because we see that they've got a lot of integrity, and they've done what they said they were going to do, which is clear that we've done. Now you look at, okay, well, how about Dominion? Where does that fit in? So obviously Dominion is it is was an asset that was very, very it's unique in that it has, you know, 2/3 of an ounce to 2 ounces gold at surface in a vein 1.5 meters wide, goes 40 meters. It's very, very cheap mining. So we will be extracting material there, and then that material will come to our site. In the meantime, let's say hypothetically we're milling 2 other projects. So now that you've got a bottleneck, and so we don't blend, so we'll do one, because our mill can mill faster than our miners can mine. And so we'll be milling the one, then we'll switch to the other, and we'll go back and forth, and we'll continue shipping. But at some point, and I've seen this, one one of the things that miners miners in general have to be optimistic, right? So if you're the CEO of a mining company, you have to be optimistic on your ability to execute. But let's get to February, March. These are, January, February, March. These are very cold months, and stuff happens. And so when there is a decrease in production for, maybe water pipes freeze or something happens,
Mhm.
this is the time when we can take our own material and put it through the mill and monetize that. Because we've now, again, in order to be a good partner, we've gone and we've ramped up our production. So we're operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know, 300 and whatever days a year. So, we're kind of like the 7-Eleven of milling. And so then, but if something happens on that side, we don't want our people sitting around idle as well. So this is the time where we'll be able to put our material through and really benefit from that, the ability to do that. Because
Mhm.
you don't want to be 100% reliant on people shipping you material for your operations.
Yep.
And as you know, like, and we used to do this when I was a Wall Street banker, where when you would look at companies, having one client that is 80% of your production is always scary, right? So having that diversification of mill feed is actually beneficial to Nickel and its shareholders.
Right. Right. No, absolutely makes sense. And I guess that brings me to Treasure Mountain. So you do have mining permits on that
Yep.
project. What are the plans going forward for Treasure Mountain?
Yeah, and that's a great question, Ben. And it's the billion-dollar question. So what what we know, I'll tell you what we know and what we don't know. So what we know is in 2012, Coeur, time Coeur d'Alene, invested $5 million into, at the time, Haldor Silver, which we've now become Nicola Mining. But in 2012, Coeur invested $5 million at a $200 million valuation, only on Treasure Mount, based on Treasure Mount. And so what they saw on the backside, because I spoke with them personally, was they said there's something on the backside that is very significant. Because if you look at the mine itself, the mine has three minerals. It has high grade silver, it has high grade lead, and high grade zinc. If you look at the backside, our we've had a long vein, so there's a vein system that pops out at surface. The veins on the backside, or the north side of the mountain, have, up to 9,000 grams silver, 2.5 grams gold, up to 4% copper, and then lead, zinc, and then other minerals. So something has happened there, and this is an area that it's 2.5 kilometers across, and 3 kilometers across the other way. So We did soil sampling, very extensive soil sampling. We did a electromagnetic airborne survey. So we know there's something below. We just don't know what it is. So we will look this year. So we already went to Treasure Mountain 3 weeks ago to look at an exploration program for 2025. So we will do exploration in 2025 on the targets that Coeur recommended. And we will also go underground in level one and to see, at what point, uh, what it would look like to start mining on level one again, because we've got the crown pillar and we have level one stope too. And when one of the first things I did as a CEO was I put it into care and maintenance because in 2013, silver was $14.68 an ounce, and it cost us $12.50 to mine, and the Canadian dollar was $1.05 to the US. So now we're at this comfortable silver's north of $25, 30. I'm not a speculator as to will silver go to 100 or $200, but you know, at $25, this is very profitable. So we'll look at that this year. So that's why we did the 10-year mine extension that we got in January of 2025, and that's why we got the 5-year MIAB permit for exploration, which we received in June of 2025. So we're actively kind of bringing eyes back to that silver asset that is somewhat forgotten.
Right, right. Yeah, and ultimately, whether there's the big upside on the backside or just providing a bit more material to the mill, then it's sort of a
Sure.
win-win for the company. And that
And
does
I
bring. Mhm.
oh, sorry, Ben, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that brings me to the mill and the mill expansion. So obviously, that is a goal for the company. What is the process to get this permit amendment? What's sort of the timeline that you're hoping for? And in terms of the amendment, how big are you looking? You said maybe a doubling or tripling of throughput.
Yes, so I'm before I answer that, just one thing I really need to emphasize, and this is with the silver, with Treasure Mountain Silver Mine, and also with our Craigmont copper exploration. So understand that, like, we're doing exploration on projects, and we all know the length of time it takes to get permits, mine permits. So at Treasure Mountain, we have a mine and we can do exploration, but it's a permitted mine already. And it's the
Yeah.
same with Craigmont. So we're doing copper exploration on a site that is the highest grade copper project, or copper mine in the history of North America, major copper mine, and it's also permitted. So now getting to the mill again, we have a very large water permit. We have the infrastructure. Everything is there to increase the capacity. Now, I'm not going to speculate when that will happen. And I would like to answer it in the following is that right now, so because I get asked this question a lot, people are like, oh, well, you're running at full capacity, you know, where's the bottleneck? You've got these different partners, and then you have uh um you know who are you gonna like focus on as when the throughput is there. And the reality is right now we're not running at full capacity because neither of our partners have reached that full capacity level. And so I think the ministry will expedite our permitting once Nicola becomes the bottleneck, and then
Right.
you've got these projects that they've permitted and they want operating, and you have these other projects that they've permitted. So once we hit that bottleneck where we say, hey, BC, you're slowing down projects right now. Let's get this ramped up. Then I think the permitting will be expedited. But well, I'm confident it will be because we're already speaking with the ministry. But that said, right now we haven't reached that level of Nicola, the Craigmont mill site being the bottleneck for other projects. So that's once we get there. So the sooner we hit that bottleneck and the sooner our partners start, filling up the mill to full capacity, then that expansion can occur.
Right, right. Understood. Okay, that makes sense. And you did mention the new Craigmont project. like you said, highest grade historical copper mine in BC. What
In North
what is
America.
in North America? Excuse me. Thank you. Um, what is going on right now in terms of the exploration campaign?
So the campaign this year was to start vectoring towards a porphyry. And we know that there's a high grade skarn. We know that there's lots of copper. We know that when the historic Craigmont shut down, that they left essentially in situ 500,000,000 pounds of copper grading zero point 0.4. So these are documented facts. But um, you know, we also felt because Highland Valley has nine pits of greater than 4 billion pounds. So these are very large copper pits that are adjacent to our project, and Norm Keevil Jr., who is really the founder of tech at Highland Valley, did his PhD thesis on our project. Not many people know that. So there's a lot of copper to be found there. And so this year we really focused on vectoring towards a porphyry system. So we did exploration at the Mar, and currently we're in the Draken zone, which is a new zone. It's never been drilled before. And I can't say what the grades are like, but it's very clear that we've vectored into a porphyry system. We're extremely excited about when we release these results, and not only excited from the perspective of investors, retail investors or institutional investors, but also strategics that will view this project as well. There's a copper mine, in the future here in British Columbia that is permit, that has all the infrastructure. And so that's something that we're pretty excited about. This is certainly the most instrumental or pivotal exploration that we've done in this company. And
Right.
one of the things that always stands out, and it's almost hard to fathom, is that from 1961 up until 2016, when we started the exploration, there was zero copper exploration on that project. So it's very unique to have a permitted mine site that has had no copper exploration. And the reason being is because there were multiple owners and they had a different focus, which was on the magnetite in the historic tailings.
Okay. Okay. Um, So amazing. I mean, there's all of these different things. It sounds like Q3 is a very pivotal moment for the company as you do start mining, producing concentrate. Like you said, you shipped your most recent or your first shipment of concentrate in the last couple of weeks. Um, Cash flows ultimately will be coming from all of this production. That cash flow can get rolled back into the Merritt mill for a potential expansion, but it can also be used to explore New Craigmont or
Sure.
these other projects. A very attractive sort of story that gets put together with all these different moving parts for an investor, and then even an uplisting to the Nasdaq, attracting U.S. shareholders and
Yeah.
investment from down there that maybe they haven't heard the story before. Many different catalysts coming and tailwinds for the company. So we are quite excited. Of course, the stock's been performing well over the last 3 6 months, which I think leads into that production and revenues that are pending. Um, was there any? That was all I had for questions. Was there any closing remarks that you wanted to close on there, Peter?
Yeah. Sure. Thanks all. Thanks, Ben, for having this interview with me. But I would say that one thing that I haven't brought up is, okay, if hypothetically, let's say Nicola were to double or triple its throughput, what would that cost look like? And
Right.
all the work, this is why we closed down in 2024. So that work has been done. And so the outstanding requirement is to change the ball mill. And that work can be done for $1 million. So we're not talking tens of millions, right? We're talking about changing a ball mill that can be acquired. And these are pretty simple. And the infrastructure for that has already been completed. So
Amazing.
it's waiting on the permitting. And as the cash comes in, I mean, ultimately, we believe this to be a roll-up platform, and we will look at acquisitions. But what does an acquisition look like to Nicola? It's something that, like we did with Dominion, it's something that we can put into production within 24 months. You
Right.
know, we're not taking greenfield projects and spending 10 years on exploration. That's not our platform. It's got to be near term. It's got to make sense. It's got to be high grade, and it has to fit into the overall story, and it's got to be synergistic. So you're not going to see Nicola Mining looking at projects in Peru or Quebec or Ontario because that's not what our
Yeah.
platform is. Our platform is synergistic asset acquisition expansion in the province of British Columbia.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you find your niche, and once it works and you prove out the concept, you can expand from there. But
Yeah,
again, focus on what works. Great. Well, Peter, again, thank you for walking myself and the viewers through the story and all the recent updates. Definitely looking forward to what's to come over the next few quarters and into 2026. Certainly an exciting time ahead. And for our followers, if you haven't seen our research on Nicola, you can find it on our website at atriumresearch.ca. Subscribe and get updates as they report news throughout the year. And again, Peter, thank you for your time.
thank you.